Hey everyone, welcome to the AquiPor mini podcast where your hosts, Greg Johnson, that's me, and Kevin Kuntz, we seek out really interesting people that we feel can give fresh insights, new information, and maybe new ways of thinking about things pertaining to everything from water to the environment to green technology, heavy industry, startups, everything in between. I think we're going to cover an array of topics as we go through some of these episodes. But today we are really excited to have a guest that I would consider to be an expert in the water sector, Melissa Meeker. She is the co-founder and CEO of the Water Tower, which is a water innovation center in the Atlanta, Georgia area. They're using an integrated approach to incubate technology innovation. They're doing applied research, on-site demonstrations, workforce development and training, and key stakeholder engagement. And it's all happening under one roof, which is amazing. And she's running that organization, and she brings with her 25 years of experience in water resources management. She was the CEO of the Water Environment and Reuse Foundation, the executive director of the South Florida Water Management District, the deputy secretary, Florida Department of Environmental Protection. Simply put, you're an expert in the water industry and with the environment. So without further ado, welcome to the interview.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I don't know about the expert part, but I've certainly done a few things.
Yes. Well, we have the privilege of like soaking up your knowledge and wisdom here for the next 30 to 45 minutes. So like I said, I think let's just see where this conversation takes us. We have a lot to unpack. We got a bunch of questions. But to start, I mean, I gave everyone your bio, but why don't you give us your background? Like, how did you get to this point today?
You know, I was born and raised in Tampa, so a Floridian. Really grew up working for, you mentioned the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. I mean, started there as a part-time employee making $7 an hour 100 years ago, it feels like. But grew up in different positions, working on resource management stuff, on water stuff, on regulatory side. Also had some great exposure to private sector jobs. So for an international consulting firm, my own consulting firm, nonprofit work in DC, regional government, South Florida Water Management District. So all centered on really water resources. And alternative water supply development. So as we get into this integrated water management discussion, I mean, we were sick of purple pipes and wanted to bring reuse into water supply discussions, and conversations going on now with stormwater. So it's very exciting to actually break down those silos and pull everything together. And I think all of that has really pushed me to the position that I'm in now, the Water Tower, which is, as you mentioned, really exciting.
It is really exciting. So what was the brainchild? Like, how did this all come together, I guess?
Yeah, so, Gwinnett County has always been on the cutting edge of innovation. The wastewater treatment facility here is cutting edge technology. It's one of the highest treatment facilities on the Eastern Seaboard. They practice potable reuse, so our wastewater goes back to Lake Lanier, which is our drinking water. So they've always had that reputation, and the leadership at the utility really wanted to, had a big vision for innovation, wanted to capitalize on that reputation and do something unique. You see really creative, awesome utilities across the country, really around the world, who are pushing the envelope on innovation. And I think that the county, the utility director knew that in order to do that, he needed to approach things a little differently. So he came up with this idea of an innovation center, which would do applied research and have the technology bent to it. And he stalked me in DC and brought me down. Really excited for that opportunity. And I pitched to him that a nonprofit was a better model to do this. Of course, that was where I came from.
Mhm.
It was a way for us to bring in resources and interest and everything across the board and not just be a utility initiative that was constrained by government things. And he loved the idea, and it's taken us a couple years to get to this point, but it's we're in construction. This time next year, I'll be pushing the construction team to get out of my building. And there are a bunch of components to that. So we've got field training aspect. You mentioned workforce development. That's a huge passion of mine. You don't work in this industry for 25 plus years and not see challenges in terms of workforce, which is compounded by and really restricts, I think, technology innovation uptake. The workforce challenges do. So if we, again, bring all those silos together and get them working together, I think we're going to have a great impact on the industry.
I think so too. I think it's incredible. I think this has been needed, and maybe it's long in the making. We got off the phone Tuesday, and I thought, and I just couldn't get it out of my head. This needs to be everywhere. It needs to be throughout the world, really, but we can start here in the US to begin with. So I'm super excited. I think, and when we kind of make it to the other side of this pandemic at some point, I'm going to make it a priority to get down there and see what you guys are working on, because I think it's really cool. Like here in Washington State, we have the Washington Stormwater Center.
Mm-hmm.
They've done some really innovative stuff as well. But to see this kind of, I think what you guys are doing is a little more comprehensive, and it's going to be exciting. So I'm curious. I want to know more about kind of what you were doing in DC.
Oh, so I went to DC to run the Water Reuse Association and the Water Reuse Research Foundation. So it was two positions in one, really. Again, alternative water supply development, an international association, trade association, with a huge focus of expanding the water supply portfolio. So definitely fits in nicely with everything we're talking about. At that time, when I got up there, I was in that position for 2 or 3 years, and then merged the position, the Water Reuse Research Foundation, with WRF at the time, which was the second largest. So there are 3 water-related research foundations in the U.S., and we merged the middle one and the small one into one.
Wow.
And the reason that I came to Atlanta is because we merged all 3 together then. So big push on merging those 3, making a one water research foundation, which is so needed. Just a great opportunity to pull together all the research to make sure that it is comprehensive and really addressing the industry's challenges. So that was just a fantastic 5 years in DC to accomplish that, and then take little pieces of that and come down here and combine it with the rest of my passions. So
that's really cool. This one water thing is, and we'll talk more about this, but this holistic approach, this is the future, I think, of urban water management. And I know Kevin has a lot to say about that, and we'll get to it. So that's exciting. But where does your passion for water come from? I mean, is that something like when you grew, when you're younger, or is this something you kind of grew into? I mean, because you obviously have a passion for water.
I definitely have a passion for water. I mean, imagine how lucky we are, you guys included, to work in a field that is so essential. Without water, we have nothing. No economy, no products, the desk we're talking on, all of this, IT, the computer systems, everything needs water to make the product, to run, to stay cool, to do everything, to drink, obviously, to grow. And how could you not get excited about that? And what amazes me is that the work we do has such a direct impact on our local communities and the resilience of those local communities. We just need to get that message out there so that everyone can be as passionate about it.
Yep.
We have a horrible water ethic in the US, just horrible. So take everything for granted.
Oh, I know.
Dude, anything we can do to have those conversations, to push those conversations, that's really what we're focused on.
Yep. I totally agree. I think we're spoiled. We do take clean water for granted here in the United States. What's interesting though, and we felt this shift, there's I think 3 inflection points that are really happening. And part of it has to do with the belief system, this overarching belief system, even of kind of the regulatory bodies, where like for us in stormwater, when we started this, and our experience goes back a decade, even before AquiPor was formed, when we first got into kind of the stormwater infrastructure market and the sector. And it was about keeping pollutants and pollutant loads out of clean water bodies, which it still sort of is. But now we've seen this shift to where now cities are combating urban flooding. And it comes down to now the protection of property and lives. And so the narrative's sort of changing. And we're in this situation now where it feels like there's not desperation, but cities and municipalities have this sense of urgency to, with maybe restricted budgets, to like, hey, we have to try new approaches and new things. And so for us, it's been amazing just over the last 10 years to see the shift. And
I don't know that it's a shift so much as an expansion of the conversation, right? Because depending on where you are, water quality is still a huge constraint. Here where we are, again, Lake Lanier is our source water. So they're very concerned about stormwater going back to that. Not just the flooding issue, but also the water quality piece.
Yep.
So for me, it's the expansion of the discussion, which gets to the challenges that the industry are facing today.
Yep.
Melissa, and I was on mute earlier, so I apologize.
I thought you were trying to talk.
Chime in there. Yes, I am very excited about this topic, and again, just so impressed with you and your work. But one question I have is, you're merging those 3 water groups. I mean, that takes tremendous effort and collaboration. So just even aside from water, I mean, my question for you is, what were some tricks in doing it? That's such a large scale, such a big movement for water. How did you pull that off?
Oh, come on. We all know if you set a vision and you start walking down the path, you get there. So it's just one step at a time.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, I want to hit on something you just talked about, and it had to do with challenges in the sector. What are some of the biggest challenges that we face today as a sector in general?
We have a few, you know.
You think?
Yeah, I think so. I think the biggest challenge is, you know, that it's an invisible system, right? So people don't see the pipes. They don't even see the treatment facilities unless they get taken there in the 5th grade, you know.
Right.
It's invisible. So that makes it difficult for us to talk about infrastructure needs, aging infrastructure, you know, upgrades that are needed. Why do you need new digital technologies? There's, you know, you guys just turn on the pipe and out comes the water. It's like, no, there's a little bit more to it than that. So I think that invisible nature is a baseline challenge that we have.
Yep.
The other major thing that's going on really around the world right now is this changing climate, right? So we get more water in places where we didn't historically get water. We're getting less water in places where we got a lot of water before. They're coming in different forms, not as much snow. We're getting more thunderstorm. You know, it's just change that's really messing up the way our communities have functioned in the past and the way we've addressed water resources in the past. Yeah, so I think that's why you take that water quality conversation and you add on this flooding protection of people piece, and you hopefully create this integrated opportunity that we have to break down all the silos and actually manage water the way it should be managed.
Yep. Well, we're optimistic because there's a lot of brain power. There are people like yourself that are actually taking the steps and doing things to bring everything together and come full circle. One thing that we talk about at AquiPor, and this pertains to stormwater because that's what we're addressing, but we really believe that the current assumptions surrounding the products and the markets in stormwater infrastructure today will not be true tomorrow or in the future. And because of that, we're kind of developing our technologies with that mentality in mind. But from your perspective, what's a current assumption today that you think will not be true in, say, 5 or 10 years pertaining to the overall industry?
Yeah, I think the most important one is the one that we've sort of touched on in the last few minutes, and that's that you really, there's a perception out there, and a lot of our institutions, a lot of utilities are still set up this way, in silos, that you can manage water in silos. And the reality of it is that to address growth, to address this changing climate, to address all these things, we've got to break that down and think about things in a more integrated way. You know, it wasn't that long ago that we were talking about wastewater as a waste product. How fast do we get away? How fast do we get it away from us? Let's put it wherever we can and not worry about it. And that transformation took place. So this is a resource. We can pull energy out of it. We can pull nutrients out of it. We can make water from it, use water. So that conversation has thankfully in the last 10 years really taken off. We're going to have that same conversation with stormwater. It's going to be the third leg, if not the fourth leg, of water supply. There's going to be things that we can take out of it and use. There's going to be ways that we can better manage that system, all of the systems together.
Yep, 100% agree. Who are some people that come to mind that you think are really ahead of the curve, like are really innovators in the water sector? I mean, is there anyone that you come across or you follow or that you know personally or work with that you're like, you know what, they are true innovators?
Oh man, now you put me on the spot.
Yeah, I know I'm going off script.
Got the pen ready.
Oh man, there really are. We have amazing people in this field. Follow me on Twitter and see who I follow, and you'll.
We do.
Think about some of the awesome. I mean, the work you guys are doing is amazing. There's some technologies out there that are being tested. We're actually demonstrating that are really pushing the envelope and doing great things. And then there's some great utilities there too. You know, Houston, look at what Houston has faced in the last 5 years in terms of hurricanes and flooding and true people property damage. And what they're doing now at their utility is just fantastic. You know, Miami-Dade, a rising sea, and it literally impacting their treatment process. When you're faced with, you know, one of the quickest ways we're going to innovate is through a disaster and how you handle that. Hampton Roads in Virginia, you know, great innovation. You know, utilities really trying to do things differently.
Yep.
And what I find amazing is that when you look across the spectrum, and this is across everything, not just the utilities themselves, but when you look across the spectrum, you'll see a utility who, yeah, they're dabbling in innovation, but what they're really focused on is training their workforce or partnering with their local community. So everybody's got this piece that's local driven, that's a challenge for them. And it's exciting to see what people are doing. What we're trying to do with the water tower is, again, bring all of that together so that we can learn from each other and really push forward so that it's easier to copy what someone else has done. But if I don't know what they're doing, I can't copy that. So let me bring you the success stories.
100%. Kevin, what was the name of that study that featured highlighted Hampton Roads that you just?
The U.S. Water Alliance actually came out with, and what I loved about it is it focused on the problem first. I mean, they went all the way down to the census. Where are you? You know, how are we going to solve this in neighborhoods? Because that's ultimately where the problem lies for us. We have this vast amount of impermeability and a system that's not really caught up with the times in that. And so, great study by the U.S. Water Alliance.
Yeah, and you know, the coolest thing about that project to me is that the utility was headed down a path, and that path is being driven by their consent decree. So regularly push them in a direction which was a complete waste of time. Maybe not a complete waste of time, but they were able to tell the story in a way that got everybody pulling in the right direction, which is the way, again, integrated water management. It's the way we should be doing business.
Yep, totally agree.
We love hearing that. Yeah.
So this is a question that that I've had for some time since we kind of met each other and started talking, but you're a woman who is a leader. You're a leader in the industry and in the water industry. And I would imagine you had to break through some barriers to kind of get to where you're at today. I have 3 young daughters, and I've been encouraged by, you know, the progress that we're seeing in STEM careers with women taking on leadership roles in science, technology, and engineering. What can we do as an industry to get more young people, more women, more minorities involved in the water sector?
It's a great question. I think, and again, you know, I've got age for you guys. So again, when I started, I was literally the only woman in the room of a bunch of male engineers. So, you know, to see that transformation to now go and share a panel of women. We've had all women panels. It's fantastic. You know, just great progress. And, you know, you're not giving up seats. You're actually seeing people rise to the challenge to be leaders in the industry. So that's fantastic. I think one of the challenges that we have as an industry, besides the leaders that are out there, but one of the challenges that we have as an industry is that public engagement, public education for public institutions is usually the first thing that gets on the chopping block. So whereas in the past we saw public education, we saw outreach, we saw environmental education as a key part, you know, a lot of times that falls off when budgets get tight, when things happen. So we really need to develop that, use the word infrastructure, but that infrastructure where we're able to get down in the schools and have discussions about water, where we're able to provide mentoring opportunities and internships and things like that that can expose people to the fantastic careers in the water industry. Literally, GED to PhD, we've got it all. And a great opportunity as essential careers to make an impact in our local communities. Just now you hit on something I'm really passionate about.
That's awesome.
For sure. And one thing we've noticed too, Melissa, is in launching this crowd fund, you know, you turn on the camera and you let people know, and it's gone really really well for us, and we've learned so much because the reach out has been so tremendous. What we're finding is that a lot of college students, you know, whether it's undergrad or, you know, anywhere in between, environmentalism is alive in young kids, and they're reaching out, hey, do you have internships? And we're like, you know, hey, we're gonna get the product going first. But if there's any college students out there that are interested in this type of innovation, reach out. You know, we'd love to hear what you think about the U.S. Water Alliance. We'd love to hear what you think about the most recent literature. We'd love to hear what you think about legislation and how you envision this whole thing playing out. So please reach out, kids.
It's a great point, and I think one of the you know, we're beginning this messaging even for us of, you know, again, COVID has taught us that water is essential. So we're essential workers. We got paid throughout the entire event, no layoffs. If anything, we were more active. It's an essential workforce. So those people who worked in our field, and specifically public utilities and of course design engineers, had to go to work, still got paid, so they were able to take care of their families throughout this challenge. Add to that this cultural shift that we're seeing in our younger generations, where they want to contribute back to their communities. They want to be a part of it. They want to know that what they're doing is actually going to a greater good. And this is the time for the water industry to really plant that flag.
Sure.
In this way,
there's a lot of energy. A lot of energy.
And for us, it's the you know, I listed 2 challenges earlier. The third one that I always bring up is workforce challenges. So not only do we have this environmental ethic in this generation, but we also have the ability with new technologies to tap into gamification, AR, VR, actually, you know, move technology into what was traditionally very conservative organizations, because there's a new generation of workforce.
Yeah, it's exciting. We're seeing it, for, like Kevin said, firsthand. One thing, Kevin, I think there's some background noise, and I think it's because you don't have
I
ear.
apologize. Yeah.
So
I'll
you
mute
might
it here.
mute it. Yeah.
Oh, I won't forget to unmute it this time.
Okay, there you go. How's that?
Good.
I think that, okay, that's better. I just noticed that the no earphones, but this gets into a few things that we're already talking about, and I think we're sensing the shift. I think it's happening slowly and maybe subtly. We talk to people in the industry from the private sector, whether they're product reps or companies like ours or solutions companies, and they're so down on what's still perceived as path dependency from the public sector and from regulators and kind of decision makers. What, from your perspective, if you're a private company like AquiPor, what does it take to kind of circumvent or get through some of that perceived path dependency?
One of my driving forces for developing the water tower has really been around that technology demonstration. But again, I've got to marry that with the workforce development piece. So by partnering with the Georgia Association of Water Professionals that does all the water, wastewater, and stormwater certifications in the state, and making this their northern campus, we will have thousands of operators come through our site. And what do you think I'm going to do as the teacher of that class? I'm going to take them out back and show them exactly where AquiPor is being demonstrated. That exposure, and here's the data. Here's the water that came off the street without treatment. Here's what happens after it goes through our system. That exposure in a totally at ease scenario, I think, is going to have a great impact on our ability to push technology to different people.
It's amazing. I know.
I mean, you guys would never be able to visit every utility and have discussion, but I can touch however many thousands of people.
Yep.
And through our own outreach events and articles and papers and everything else highlighting those technologies. But not as a sales pitch, because that's not my job. My job is to demonstrate the technology, do a third-party review on the technology, and go, they need to keep working on this one, or this works really great, and have technical experts in the field from around the world being the ones to say that. I think that third-party validation is going to help the regulatory agencies. It's going to help the vendors. It's going to also improve products, because we're going to be able to feed information back in. But marry that to the exposure side with those boots on the ground coming through going, wow, this really works well. I had to put this, here. Or maybe it's the new standard and we incorporate it into our development codes. Those kinds of discussions, I think, have to start with immersion into the technology. And it's hard to do that when you have such a large area.
Yep. You nailed it. And I think we talk about that too. It's like in every community, every city, every state, every county has their different set of water challenges. And so it's like, well, and we've been getting this for years as we've been developing this. Well, how would this work, here? And it's like, well, we don't know. We can make some assumptions. Right. And it also depends on what type of natural soils you have. And, there's a number of factors, but I think what you guys are doing, it is futuristic. And the fact that you're going to be able to get so many new sets of eyes on new technologies while you're doing the training, I think is obviously huge just for the industry as a whole.
You call it futuristic. Don't you think that it's long overdue?
Yes, I do.
Like I'm behind the curve.
Right.
You want me to wait 6 months? No, I need to do this yesterday.
No, I know. We feel the same way, and that's kind of the way it is. But what's funny is it's all kind of come of age now too. So, and Kevin, you can hit on this now, because I do want to talk about the integrated planning piece of the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act. But it's like, this is something that we've thought very strongly about for years, and to finally get it put into legislation is, I think, going to be the future of urban water management on site for cities, because they're going to have no other, well, they'll have another choice. It's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
Green infrastructure in lieu of some of these other approaches is going to be the future. So Kevin, do you have anything to add to that? Because I know we've talked about it a ton.
Yeah, I guess my main question, as we see this all kind of come down the pipeline, Melissa, where do you guys see green infrastructure having its biggest impact? So as this whole thing kind of runs through, what's the most effective way to keep the raindrops where they fall?
So, when if you would have asked me the same question about water reuse, it was totally driven by the Sun Belt and by droughts. I think a lot of that has been, those specific areas that regularly get droughts have pushed the envelope in terms of reuse. I think they're starting to look at what that next source of water is. So, droughts are going to drive that. MS4 regulations, different things like that are going to continue to drive stormwater side, but it's going to take that crisis, to really see a big push. But again, I think those conversations are happening. You just have to get it, keep pushing on it.
Yeah, the Midland, Michigan, that was hard to watch. You see tens of thousands of homes get displaced because we can't manage water properly. That hit at home, especially when you spend so many years developing a product that's meant for green infrastructure, and you see, having a potential solution for these areas. And so we face some harsh realities now. And like you had mentioned climate change earlier, that was another thing that we've really been focusing on, is because it directly correlates with how we manage water. If it's dropping more rain faster, we have to rethink the model. And, we have to almost rethink the 100-year design storm.
Absolutely.
The way I say it, because, that was once in every 500 year, 8 inches of rain in over one period of time. So yeah, green infrastructure is we want to help be the voice and provide a toolkit as the water professionals, continue to be rock stars along the way.
Yeah, and it's green infrastructure, it's green economy. It's a way to, that in and of itself, I think, will incentivize some technology innovation. And we just need the regulatory agencies and the utilities to pick up on it, find innovative developers, continue conversations with the planning associations, because they don't always think about water. They're trying to more now. But that's a place where, it's a good space for policy level discussions about stormwater. There's lots of opportunities. It's exciting. And not just the flooding. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up one of my major fears, and that's algae. So again, as we look at our source waters, the lakes, water quality protection, that's why I'm not willing to say that, flooding has sort of taken over that, because we've seen significant challenges with harmful algal blooms in source waters, and the utilities having to deal with that. So, stormwater's key. There's no way around it.
It's a great point. And I think green infrastructure will come of age when the toolkit is such that it is cost effective. It's in a very small, lower footprint situation, and it's low maintenance. And I think one challenge that cities run into is the maintenance component, because it is specialized maintenance. And so this gets back to some of the workforce training and the development that you're talking about. And that's really for AquiPor. And I hate to talk too much about what we're doing, but we want this to be a really unobtrusive, just fit right into the existing infrastructure approach that requires no special maintenance. And I think if we can get it to that level, green infrastructure will be scalable, and we could see it, very widespread. And that's ultimately our goal. But touch on that a little bit. I mean, do you see some of these same issues with maintenance and some of the challenges maintaining green infrastructure today?
Yeah, so we're developing this site, and it's adjacent to, it's actually part of our campus, is the Gwinnett Environmental and Heritage Center. Their parking lot is a pervious parking lot, first generation. Disaster. It's a disaster.
Yeah.
So now you look at county agencies who have seen this disaster in place, and they're like, you want me to put in what?
I know.
It's not worth it's not worth the aggravation. Now they have to rip up the entire parking lot and start all over again. Do you think they're going to put in pervious pavement? Probably not.
No, and we've had plenty of opportunity along the way to meet with various landscape architects and civil engineers, and that was the general consensus: is there's a stigma. Hey, It's great in theory, but in practice, I've got a project that 5 years down the road, it doesn't work. So heading into this venture, that was something that we really focused on. We wanted to put a technology out into the marketplace that one day people could rely on to properly manage these raindrops. So
it's a great point. And again, I'll tie that back to this generation. We partnered with a local high school here to do their senior capstone project, and basically said, we're looking at green infrastructure. Give us your best. And then it was during COVID. They made videos. I'd love to share this one video with you. They made videos, they submitted them. We had an expert team rate them. The group that won was a pervious pavement. And had a whole little design thing that they put together and explained why it was necessary and why it would work. So it's common sense, right? That it's got to happen. So at least the younger generation is thinking, of course, should be the way it always is. So just need to combine all of this together again.
Exactly. Yeah. Few material limitations with those existing technologies that hopefully we've figured out. But I want to turn the spotlight kind of back onto you as we start wrapping up here. So I want to know, what was one of the biggest challenges throughout the course of your career that you had to face? And what'd you learn from it? How'd you overcome it? What came of it?
For me, the biggest challenge that I have faced, probably in every position, but certainly when I was in South Florida, is politics. Nothing we can do about that. It is interesting though, and it's a hard lesson, I think, that a lot of people need to learn, especially this day and age with such a strong social media presence in everything we do. I mean, everything. Yep. It started to get bad when I was the executive director. I can't imagine having that job right now, because nobody's happy with what you're doing, which I always took as a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm hated on all sides, then it must be a real. Yeah, but it's tough. It's just tough to do the right thing and frankly not have a lot of support. So that's always, I think, the biggest challenge. But knowing that you're doing the right thing and knowing that you're headed in the right direction and you know what the vision is how we succeed. So lots of challenges.
And hey,
learn from them.
The conversation's happening, and that's the beautiful thing, Melissa, is we connected, and it was Twitter, and that's the bright side of it, so to speak. Yep. So
absolutely.
Well, I think that's
Twitter things to professional posts, though.
Right.
Going on in the industry. This is how we're trying to do good things.
Yeah.
The rest of it.
But you know what? I think that's profound what you said, because we're all human. And so this is really our first foray on, because we've been in stealth mode for 5 years developing this technology. And then it's like, boom, we're out to the world. And I do at times, I see what's on social media and I take it personally. And it's like, but you just have to understand, if you're trying to do the right thing, you just have to let it, bounce
right
off
off.
Like Teflon.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's right.
So that's really good. Okay. One person that you admire most or that you would like to meet, dead or alive? Anyone.
So, I've been blessed with a number of fantastic mentors throughout my career. One person that, besides my mother, of course, and my husband, those are two very important people that I know very well, but they help me out. That I just think is a fantastic role model in the industry is Cindy Wallace-Lage. I don't know if you know Cindy or not. She is president of Black and Veatch America, the water department or water business.
Yep.
And she's been in that position for a while. And those are hard positions to have. And she regularly speaks, and brings in mentees and talks to them, and she has great advice. And it's being able to balance literally thousands of employees, meet the numbers, but still be human. Those are the kinds of things that I strive for, and frankly, run a business that's having a positive impact on the water industry. So she's just one example. There are a ton out there. And I'm just blessed to know a few of them and stalk the rest of them on Twitter. So
That's awesome. I think that speaks to me. I mean, you talk about high performers.
Yeah.
That's what she is. I mean, that's amazing. So that's good. I'm sure she'll appreciate that. I guess the last real question, save the best for last. You are up in an airplane and you can drop flyers that say anything. And 1 million people are going to, and they're biodegradable, by the way. So not literally.
That's good.
Yeah. They could say anything and 1 million people are going to pick them up off the street. What does your flyer say?
Crowdfund AquiPor.
Keep the raindrops where they fall.
No, for me, it's no water, no life. That's the message I want everyone to realize, that we, no water, no life.
Amen to that. Where can everyone find you? What's your Twitter handle?
Oh, wow. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow. You should have told me you were going to ask me that one. They can find me at
I have it somewhere.
Tower. It's the H2O tower.org. Melissa, all my staff are first name at the H2O tower.org, or on Twitter, the Water Tower, Melissa Water. I think it's ML Meeker H2O, maybe.
I think that sounds right.
That sounds right. Something like that.
Yep. Are you on Instagram at all?
I am on Instagram.
Let's see. While we have everyone here.
We have a YouTube channel, the Water Tower does.
Cool.
LinkedIn, of course. Global Waterworks.
Yep. Let's see.
I'm easy to find.
ML Meeker Water. At ML Meeker Water.
Great.
Okay, perfect. Kevin, do you have anything else? Any other questions? Anything on your mind?
Well, I apologize to everyone about the audio ahead of time, but I have it figured out, and on the next turn we'll have no background noise. Hey, Melissa, I know your time is super valuable, and so for you to take the time out of your day to have a conversation with the young men from the Pacific Northwest, we appreciate that. So we're doing it for water, and it's just exciting to get you in the fold and to honestly learn from you. Not only our audience, but Greg and I. That was a extremely valuable conversation as I had my pen kind of writing away. So I just really appreciate you for taking the time.
Hey, it is totally my pleasure. You guys have so much passion and energy. It's exciting. I can't wait to work with you in the future.
We agree. We're very much likewise.
Absolutely.
And here's what we should do. We should have a follow-up podcast at your facility.
Ooh, yeah.
Sometime next year.
Sounds great.
Let's make this kind of we'll figure out a time and a day and all that. But
hey, we're actually going to have a podcast room, so we can sit around like we're at the radio station. And
it'd be so cool.
I'd be a kid in a candy store. You're my hero.
Let's do it. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Fighting the good fight. Okay.
Thank you.
You too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.